So Felicia Gayle, this is Felicia Gayle. She's going to get murdered. She's going to get murdered, and she was stabbed from between 10 to 43 times is what it was said. And she was killed, let's see here, it says August 11th, 1998. And so this is Felicia Gayle, and the way that the official narrative is that she was in a shower. She comes out, as anybody out there, and then the person who killed her had robbed her, stole a bunch of stuff from out of her house. She was in a shower, so it very much could be just a random person. It doesn't seem like they knew her. She was a reporter. I'm not for sure what her reports were about. But that's Felicia Gayle. And she has a kind face. She has a nice and kind face. Looks like a gentle sweetheart. Now, I couldn't find a picture of this Laura Asaro. Laura Asaro is going to be a witness for the state, and they're going to pin it all on Marcellus Williams. So this is Marcellus Williams, and he is poised to be executed in 10 days by the state of Missouri. And apparently they've killed 3 people this year so far with the death penalty. While I do believe justice is eye for an eye, I think you have to err on the side of caution, because in order to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, you really have to have a lot of evidence to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I've shown you the pictures, and now I'm just going to kind of go over the case details. Okay. So there's also another guy that's a part of this too. There's a Ronald somebody. He's going to buy the laptop. Okay, so what do we got going on here so far? So we have some information, okay? St. Louis City, he's convicted of first-degree murder, robbery, and burglary. He was in jail serving time for robbing a donut shop. August 11th, 1998, Dr. Daniel Pickus came home from work around 8 p.m. and he found his wife, Mrs. Gayle, dead at the bottom of the steps. She had been stabbed 43 times. One of their kitchen knives was protruding from her neck. So at least one of the murder weapons, and probably the murder weapon, probably the main murder weapon, was in her neck. Even though this murder occurred in the middle of the day, neighbors were out and about, so nobody had saw Marcellus Williams anywhere near Mrs. Gayle's house. Police collected hairs found near Mrs. Gayle's body, and they found bloody footprints outside the house. Now they're saying that Marcellus Williams was excluded as the source of the hairs and the source of the bloody footprints. I'm not for sure how you would know who the bloody footprints, because it had been her blood. But the murder weapon, they said that there's DNA samples. Okay, so there's hair, there's bloody footprints, and then there's a murder weapon. Now it said that he had cleaned up at the house. Well, I'll tell you what the official narrative is. So the case against Mr. Williams relies heavily on testimony of 2 people. A Mr. Cole and Laura Asaro, Mr. Williams' ex-girlfriend. But the credibility of both of these testimonies have significant grounds for skepticism. There's a $5,000 reward for any information, and so if it wasn't Marcellus, then it's Laura, right? It's got to be Laura Asaro, or it's got to be Marcellus Williams, or somebody that they were associated with. Mr. Cole was known as dishonest by his family, had a potential motive to fabricate or exaggerate. He's also in jail. Mr. Cole is a guy who's in jail, and he says that the guy had confessed to him in jail. Made it clear in the 2001 deposition he would not come forward if it hadn't been the $5,000 he was given by prosecutors. So Mr. Cole's in jail, and here's $5,000. So they're talking about incentivized. Okay, so let's talk about the official narrative. What's the official narrative according to this court case? This court case, which I don't like some of the things that they said, because the court case is saying, viewed in the light most favorable to the verdict when the appeal comes out. So there's an appeal. I think it might be the Supreme Court is actually going to rule on this. And the Supreme Court is State v. Williams, 2003, State v. Williams. So, viewed in the light most favorable to the verdict. Why are we doing that? Why would we do most favorable to one side or the other? Justice is blind and justice is balanced, right? So it's got to be even-handed. Fair and equal. Equal and exact justice. Viewed in the light most favorable to the verdict. No, I want the case to be viewed in the light most favorable to the objective truth. So that already is setting off alarm bells. So here's the official narrative. August 11th, 1998, Williams drove his grandfather's Buick LeSabre to a bus stop, caught a bus to University City. Once there, he began looking for a house to break into. If he was on a bus, don't they record all that stuff on a bus? It was 1998. Okay, so Williams came across the home of Felicia Gayle, also his grandfather's Buick LeSabre. He would have taken the Buick out. Wouldn't his grandfather have known this? Williams comes across the home of Felicia Gayle. He knocked on the front door, but nobody answered. Williams then knocked out a window pane near the door, reached in, unlocked the door, entered Gayle's home. He went to the second floor and heard water running in the shower. It was Gayle. Williams went back downstairs, rummaged through the kitchen, found a large butcher knife, and waited. Now they're going to say hearsay. All this is based upon what people have said. Gayle left the shower, called out, asking if anybody was there. She came downstairs. Williams attacked, stabbing and cutting Gayle 43 times, inflicting 7 fatal wounds. Afterwards, Williams went to an upstairs bathroom and washed off. He took a jacket and put it on to conceal the blood on his shirt. Before leaving, Williams placed Gayle's purse and her husband's laptop computer and black carrying case in his backpack. The purse contained, among other things, a St. Louis Post-Dispatch ruler and calculator. Williams left out the front door and caught a bus back to the Buick. After returning to the car, Williams picked up his girlfriend, Laura Asaro. Asaro noticed that despite the summer heat, Williams was wearing a jacket. When he removed the jacket, Asaro noticed that Williams' shirt was bloody and that he had scratches on his neck. Williams claimed he had been in a fight. Later in the day, Williams put his bloody clothes in a backpack and threw them into a sewer drain, claiming he no longer wanted them. That's a lot of details. Asaro also saw a laptop computer in the car. A day or two after the murder, Williams sold the laptop to Glenn Roberts. The next day, Asaro went to retrieve some clothes from the trunk of the car. Williams did not want her to look in the trunk and tried to push her away. Before he could, Asaro snatched the purse from the trunk. She looked inside, found Gayle's Missouri State identification card and a black coin purse. Asaro demanded that Williams explain why he had Gayle's purse. Williams then confessed that the purse belonged to a woman he had killed. How he went into the kitchen, found the butcher knife, waited for her to get out of the shower, stabbed her in the arm, put his hand over her mouth, stabbed her in the neck, twisting the knife as he went. And then after relaying the details of the murder, Williams grabbed Asaro by the throat and threatened to kill her, her children, and her mother if she told anyone. Okay, so that's the official narrative. Now, I'm going to keep on reading. The Innocence Project seems to be pretty convinced. There's like some judges and there's some lawyers, prosecutors. A lot of people seem to believe this guy did not do it. And like I said, why would you view anything in the light most favorable to the verdict? It's like the damn system just wants to pin it on somebody and then just kind of pile on that person, whether it's true or not. I know for a fact, there's been 2 incidents where they had said that the person said one thing in the court system. They want to say, oh, then he threatened to kick my ass. And actually the person said, would you like to take a step outside? Well, that's a lot different, isn't it? If you ask somebody to take a step outside, then that's giving them the condition. If you say, hey, why don't you come outside and I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then there was another thing where there was a couple warning shots were fired, but the lying liar had said that the guy was running at him in the yard, chasing him, and then he pulls into the neighbor's house and then nothing else happens. So I know that people will believe a liar's lie, and I know that the system will shove a liar's lie down the people's throat. I know that for a fact. The case against Mr. Williams relied heavily on testimony on 2 people. I heard there was 22 witnesses. And so there's $5,000. Prior to this disposition, Mr. Cole had pled guilty to armed robbery of a bank. So we're going to list it to a bank robber. A bank robber had testified, yeah, this guy, he went ahead and he told me all this stuff. And why would he tell a person anything? I mean, if he's going around committing these crimes, it seems like all they got is, you know, his alleged confession that he told his jailhouse bunkmate. He was sentenced to 4 years probation, 10 years of prison, suspended. He violated parole 6 times, but the court never imposed a suspended prison sentence. Miss Asaro, too, had a history of deception and had faced solicitation charges when the police initially approached her about the case in November 1999. I heard that the police had actually wanted to put charges against her. They considered putting charges against her. She had worked with the police before, testified against Mr. Williams in a previous trial. She even lied under oath in her recorded deposition regarding her arrest history. At some stage, police had considered charging her as an accomplice in the crime. Ms. Asaro also mentioned to her neighbor that she was receiving money for her testimony against Mr. Williams. Further adding to the doubt, the narratives from Mr. Cole and Ms. Asaro were significantly different, didn't match the crime scene evidence. For example, Ms. Asaro testified that Mr. Williams had scratch marks on him, but there was no foreign DNA that was present underneath Mrs. Gayle's fingernails. So if he's got scratch marks, what's he running through the thorn bushes? Maybe he did get into a fight. But Mrs. Gayle did not scratch him. In 2016, post-conviction DNA testing of the murder weapon excluded Williams as the perpetrator. Despite the DNA testing results proving that he did not commit the murder, Williams was denied his right to a hearing where he could present the evidence. 3 renowned DNA experts have concluded that Mr. Williams was not the source of the DNA on the knife handle. Is the DNA just all Mrs. Gayle's blood? Because if it's just her blood, then his DNA wouldn't be anywhere around it. But if they're saying there's foreign DNA, so therefore the DNA would be of the killer, then that matters. That is huge. The best evidence that they got is that the DNA, the bloody footprints didn't match Marcellus, the unknown hairs didn't match Marcellus, and the DNA on the murder weapon didn't match him. So if this is foreign DNA, DNA is very good evidence. At least I trust DNA evidence. I trust DNA evidence so much, it makes me wonder, actually, I should think more about DNA evidence because I kind of trust it too much. But he's going to get convicted, and later on they're going to say, well, this evidence here says that the DNA doesn't match. They're about to kill this guy. You need to know for sure if he actually did it. I don't give a damn if the fucking jury, if the cheating ass judge and the cheating ass prosecution was able to get a jury to believe their bullshit. Because they could pretty much govern the thing, and they can kind of herd the jury like a bunch of cattle. And if all they're doing is just it's an adversarial system, so all they're trying to do is just win their side, but they don't give a damn about the truth, that's a fucking problem. That's a problem. I think adversarial system of justice should be more or less for civil, but for criminal court, whether you did it or not, you need to free the innocent and you need to convict the guilty. You need to know the damn truth. You got to get the damn truth, and you got to figure out who did it. Brandsburg v. Hayes says that the public has a right to every man's evidence. So Mr. Williams also didn't take the stand. Mr. Williams' case is riddled with unreliable, incentivized testimony. So they're going to get this money. And if I didn't know the history of William O. Bradley is going to be the one that kills Malcolm X, but he doesn't get in trouble for it. MLK, the damn FBI is right there on the scene. RFK, CIA shot in the back. JFK, we haven't even been told, release the files. Fred Hampton is going to get shot in his sleep. Medgar Evers. Over and over again, we see black men getting gunned down, not because they're criminals, but because they are strong, powerful, rich, because they have a voice. A Missouri judge denied a motion to vacate a condemned man's death sentence despite attorneys, including one prosecutor, saying the evidence was mishandled in the 1998 trial that could have exonerated Marcellus. Khalifa William 55, remains scheduled to die by lethal injection on September 24th at Potosi Correctional Center in Mineral Point, about 70 miles southwest of St. Louis. Williams was convicted of first-degree murder for the slaying of 42-year-old Felicia Gayle, a former reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. A social worker at the time, the woman was found slain in the suburban St. Louis home she shared with her husband, stabbed 43 times with a kitchen knife taken from inside the couple's home. Court papers showed the crux of Williams' argument focused on DNA evidence that authorities recently determined was contaminated during the trial by two officials in the St. Louis prosecuting attorney's office. A retired prosecutor and investigator. During the evidentiary hearing late last month, prosecutor Keith Larner, they had set up this, the last governor had set up this inquiry, and then the inquiry is just going to get, so you had Governor Eric Gretchens. He had 5 former judges on this board of inquiry. There's been no report that was given out, and then Governor Mike Parson, the governor that comes out afterwards, dissolves it. And it said last June, so I'm thinking just a couple months ago. So Governor Mike Parson is going to dissolve this board of inquiry. We haven't got where's the report for the board of inquiry? 5 former judges were taking a look at the case. What did the 5 former judges say? I want to know more about this DNA evidence. I want to know, was it foreign DNA? Was there, because she's got, she got stabbed, so her blood's all over the place. So if you just tested her blood, and then they're saying it's contaminated, they're not saying so much that they tested the DNA with him and therefore it wasn't conclusively his. I want to know that the DNA was not her blood, and I want to hear that the DNA was not his. It wasn't hers, it wasn't his, it's somebody else's. I need to study DNA evidence a little bit better too. So the testing wasn't available when Williams was tried in 2001. So they're saying that his DNA wasn't on the murder weapon, his bloody footprints, I don't know, he could have got rid of the shoes. But they could say the size of the footprint, and whether or not it would be his size foot. And then there's hairs. You could do DNA with the hair. You could do DNA with blood. So the Keith Larner said he handled the murder weapon 5 times before the trial without gloves, indicating Williams could be innocent. He handled the murder weapon without gloves. That just means his prints would be on it. That doesn't. Earlier this year, it appears Williams' conviction could be overturned when Bell, the prosecutor, filed a motion to vacate the condemned prisoner's sentence, citing the DNA testing. New evidence significantly undermines confidence in the soundness of Mr. Williams' conviction. Bell wrote in the 86-page petition filed January 26, Mr. Williams may be innocent. Now, several things that Williams has said. So with the official narrative, you're going to have this guy that bought the laptop, and he said he bought the laptop from Williams. Williams said he got the laptop from Laura Asaro. Williams said he got it from her, and so therefore she could have been the one who did it. Do you want another person? The jury was 11 white folks and 1 black person. So this isn't a jury of his peers. 11 insecure, 11 whites, 11 mutated albinos who's insecure about. That doesn't mean that they're racist, but it doesn't mean that they weren't racist. It seems like, to me, that's biased. Give me a jury of 11 black folks and 1 white person who said that he's guilty. Then I'll listen. I'll hear you better. So he said that the laptop he got from Laura. So that would be crazy that Laura does all this stuff and then puts it on him. And then she had lied about, she perjured herself, so she lies under oath at a deposition. Now he did rob a donut store, which is what he was in jail for. So he's willing to not be perfect or not be good. He's willing to commit crimes, but she's lying under a deposition. So that's willing to commit crimes too. August 21st, Bell's office, Williams' attorney, reached an agreement that Williams would enter a new no-contest plea to first-degree murder in exchange for life in prison sentence without parole. The victim's husband, Dr. Daniel Pickus, signed off on the plea. But on the same day Hilton accepted the plea, the state's attorney general intervened and filed a motion arguing that Williams' death sentence should still stand. The defense, Bailey said, created a false narrative of innocence in order to get a convicted murderer off of death row and fulfill their political ends. The Missouri State Supreme Court blocked an agreement to spare Williams' life. The mishandling destroyed his last and best chance. The defense attorney, it's in the interest of every Missourian that the rule of law is fought for and upheld every time without fail. They said Gayle's husband was cleared of the killing. Physical evidence at the scene, court documents showed, never tied him to the crime. The case relied on testimony of 2 witnesses, a jailhouse informant. The other witnesses was Williams' ex-girlfriend, who's a convicted felon with a history of drug abuse, who court records showed led police to his trunk and found the victim's laptop a year after the crime took place. Now, they're going to find the victim's laptop, not from the police. They said that he was sold to, so we're not telling, the stories aren't being told exactly correctly. One big thing on the side of the prosecution is that the police are going to go and check out Mr. Williams' car, or the Buick, his grandfather's car. So it's in the trunk of his grandfather, so maybe the grandfather did it. But they said that the Post-Dispatch ruler and calculator was in the trunk of the Buick. Well, how did that get there? You know, I'm willing to believe possibly that Laura Asaro gives Williams the laptop. Williams sells the laptop to somebody else. So I'm willing to believe that. Where did Laura Asaro get it? I would like to know, I'd like to see all these people talk about it out loud, because the thing with people testifying is you get to see how they testify. I think sometimes you could tell a liar, sometimes not. Confidence doesn't always entail the truth. But I think that a liar, it's obvious to me to spot a liar, or it feels obvious to me. So there was bloody shoe prints that were present near a knife sheath in the kitchen and the hallway leading to the front foyer. On the rug near Mrs. Gayle's body, bloody fingerprints were found along the wall. So they got fingerprints, bloody fingerprints. Is it just hers? Is it his? What about the fingerprint evidence? Does that exonerate him, or does that connect it to him? And then they said that they went after Gayle's husband. So Gayle's husband comes back, sees her dead body, and then contacts the police, and they put it on him. He's exonerated. But really, in terms of what I know so far, which is nothing, I don't know anything. All I know, it's all hearsay. I have no conclusive evidence about shit. There's no videotape. There's no, person that I trust to be honest so far. There's no photographs. There's no eyewitnesses. So far, I think that Laura Asaro, the husband, can be just as guilty as this Williams guy. The third execution this year, he's in, let's see here, he's in jail. This is St. Louis, Missouri. When I think about the tough prison, there's Rikers Island, the Rock, San Quentin, that Florida maximum security prison. And hair is believed to belong to the perpetrator, which, just a side note, none of the physical evidence tied Mr. Williams to Mrs. Gayle's murder. Vanguard, they say they're the Vanguard, aren't they, from Missouri? And there's a governor's race in Missouri. The Vanguard should be covering this case. Get down to the nitty-gritty. Let's find out the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Can we determine the truth? The truth is objective. JFK's head went back into the left. That's on videotape. You can't deny it. Who shot him? I don't know. But I know for a fact that the shot came from the front and to the right, which means the official narrative of the single shot from behind and to the right is incorrect. Nader can brag about the Clean Air and Water Acts under Nixon. I hope that the Vanguard doesn't become a bunch of grifters like Sam Cedar and the Jimmy Dores of the world. They're just old and useless. They haven't changed one single policy. Not one single policy can they brag about changing. DNA evidence proves Marcellus Williams is innocent. The prosecuting attorney seeks to vacate his wrongful conviction. Missouri has scheduled his execution for September 24th. DNA proves he did not commit it. I trust DNA so much. So let's presume what they're saying here is that they found foreign DNA that wasn't hers, it wasn't his, it's somebody else's, and they don't have, it doesn't match the DNA database. Isn't there a big DNA database? Let's take the DNA and compare it. Can we find who the person is? You compare it to somebody else, and then later on you find out, I'm sick of people coming out 50 years later. Okay, they get a couple $1,000,000, but you wasted 50 years of their life. You wasted taxpayer money. You wasted, how many jailers and how much food, electricity. He could have been out there working and, taking care of himself, and then he gets out, and then you got to pay him millions of dollars on top of it. So you paid millions to incarcerate him, and then you paid millions because you wrongly convicted him. One of the founders, I don't think it was Patrick Henry, but they said that they would rather 99 guilty go free than to see one innocent person in jail. I'm not that extreme, but it just shows that some people believe in the principle, you never throw an innocent person in jail. And I think that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Although the circuit court has not yet scheduled a hearing to address this motion, too many times the cops will kidnap a body, and then the courts feel like they have to defend the cops, so the tail wags the three branches dog, and so they're just defending this fucking cop. And he might not even think that the person was guilty, but he made an arrest thinking that there was probable cause. Maybe he did something. So if the arresting officer isn't certain for sure, it matters what he says, it matters what he thinks, because if you're going to take his kidnapping as the God's honest truth, well, you're stupid. You are just dumb as shit. Because that's a kidnapping. One man's, I've seen this one thing where the citizen had arrested the criminals, and then the judge didn't like the person that made the arrest, so he said that, no, you just kidnapped those guys. That's all you did. No, I arrested them. There's a difference between kidnapping and arresting, right? But apparently to a judge, if a cop arrests you, well, then that's good and dandy. But if a citizen does an arrest, well, that's a kidnapping. So one man's kidnapping is another man's arrest. And then if the damn system is just going to rubber stamp, the prosecutor, the clerks, and the motherfucking judge is just going to rubber stamp the fucking kidnapping, that doesn't tell me shit. They're going to spend all this money again for fucking witnesses and evidence and a trial. And they're just being adversarial, so they're not trying to find out the truth. And then the public pretender, I'm sure he doesn't have a bunch of money. Where did he get this lawyer from? If it's a public pretender, they're over inundated anyways. Are they trying to get to the truth? And the public pretender has to maintain a relationship with the judge and the prosecutor so they could, get their other clients reduced sentences. So he's got to maintain a relationship with these fucking people. I've heard that in DuPage County, they had like a 95% conviction rate. And then I hear from Robinson and Robinson Law Firm that they have a 95% getting people off the hook rate. So you have a damn lawyer, you get off the hook. You don't have a damn lawyer, you don't have a good lawyer, then you're fucked. Because DuPage would have, I know this because I smoked marijuana. And now it's legal, right? In Illinois, you're allowed to smoke marijuana. So in a way I was being just like Henry David Thoreau. Disobedient, what do they call that? Something about, it's like MLK, so it's like radical disobedience, Henry David Thoreau. Civil disobedience. Yeah, I smoked a damn joint. In Chicago in 2008. Yeah, I smoked a damn joint fucking 16 years ago. And I had a public pretender there that didn't want to fight the case, didn't give a shit about, the fucking corruption. The damn prosecutor had a son who was, had a fucking marijuana charge, and then his case was thrown out. She didn't want to take it to trial. And then at one point in time when I said something that the judge had heard, she looked at me all angrily, which is, you're my lawyer? What the hell are you doing? So, civil disobedience. So, because I know the court system, at no point in time did they want to know the truth of the matter. And I did smoke marijuana, so I went ahead and did my 3 days because I had plea bargained it down to paraphernalia so I could complete college. which I appreciate that they did that, but really, who gives a shit? I smoked fucking marijuana. It was, you know, I was in Chicago on the Nader thing. I'm getting signatures. Americans are a bunch of assholes. You need something to medicate yourself after dealing with a bunch of assholes. I don't want to sign your petition. Well, then don't, motherfucker. The Missouri Supreme Court set an execution date for Mr. And then it was Chicago, so that's where Barack Obama come from. I was in Barack's hometown getting signatures for Nader. Anyways. With the weight of the new evidence and unreliability of the witnesses who testified against Mr. Williams, his conviction must be reevaluated to ensure that justice is truly served. Dedicated professionals from the Innocence Project. Let's see. Crime scene covered with forensic evidence contained no link to Mr. Williams. The prosecution's case against Mr. Williams was based entirely on the unreliable testimony of two. There was actually 22 witnesses, so I would love to hear the entire thing. I would love to hear what the prosecutors and any of the witnesses. I would love to hear from Laura Asaro. I would love to hear from her, Gayle's husband. And then also the guy that he sold the laptop to. Apparently he sold the laptop to the guy. Did he testify? There's a lot here. I think that you got to have cameras in the courtroom. Motherfuckers that don't allow this shit. You know, you don't want to be sensational about the stuff. So if the cameras are being distracting, okay, that's one thing. But I think it's good to have an audio recording at least, because it's easy to do. You need to modernize a lot of these court proceedings, because with an audio recording, you don't get the full context, you don't get the, you know, the mannerisms, you don't get the facial expressions, you don't get the body language. Videotape, all you got to do is just hit record, and then you see the entire court case. You get to see every testimony, all the evidence that's presented. You don't have to pay a bunch of money for a bunch of transcripts that the motherfuckers don't even give to you later on. To me, if you're an honest person, then you would want the truth to see the light of day. But if you're not doing audio recording, video recording, you don't give a shit about the truth. You're a fucking asshole, and you're trying to fucking force a liar's lie down the people's throat. Make up the team that continues to fight to stop his September 24th execution. They hope that justice will eventually prevail by way of an exoneration. Prosecuting attorney concluded Mr. Williams was actually innocent, so the St. Louis County prosecuting attorney in 2024. He moved to vacate his conviction. So there's a prosecutor that doesn't think he is guilty. That means a lot. That's one of the system. That's one of the people in the system. Took a look at it and was like, there's nothing here. The new DNA testing. Let's actually compare the DNA to, you know, the DNA database and see if there's a match. See if there's like, you know, a lot of times they'll say 97% sure that the DNA is the same as this person. So I'd like to know the percentage. How for sure is it not the husband? Is it not Laura Asaro? Is it not Mr. Williams? The Missouri Attorney General continues a history of fighting innocence cases. Incentivized informants are leading cause of wrongful convictions. Racial bias contributed to Mr. Williams' wrongful conviction, and he's a devoutly religious man, and he's an accomplished poet. So I do think it's weird that there was the ruler and the calculator of the woman that was stabbed and robbed in the back, in the trunk of the Buick. But it's his grandfather's Buick. Did the grandfather say he took the car out that day? Wouldn't the grandfather know that he took the car out? So that would be evidence. That would be an eyewitness evidence that I would believe it's his grandfather. So he's got every reason to lie on his, you know, grandson's behalf, unless he thinks that it's going to fall upon him. In the appeal to the Supreme Court, it says that he didn't say that the sufficiency of the evidence wasn't enough. Which, isn't that implied by the damn appeal? So, R.I.P. to Felicia Gayle. I want Felicia Gayle Pickus, known as Leisha. I want Leisha to get justice. I'm not for sure if this Williams is the guy. I would like to see what the Board of